Hi, I'm Shai Wyborski. Thank you for joining my talk. About a year ago, I completed my PhD in quantum cryptography in the Hebrew University under the joint advisory of Dorita Aronov and Or Satat. Other than that, some of you may know me from my contributions to a proof-of-work project called CASPA, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. I want to tell you about a research project I've done with Or during my PhD, where we try to find ways to migrate cryptocurrency, and in particular Bitcoin users, from pre-quantum to post-quantum UTXOs after a quantum adversary has already emerged. I hope you enjoy the talk. Before we get started, I just wanted to show you this excerpt. This is from 3 days ago from the Bitcoin development mailing list. Jameson Lopp started a thread about putting together a BIP for post-quantum migration for Bitcoin, and one of the points of discussion was about freezing UTXOs that have pre-quantum addresses. On one hand, not freezing them means that a quantum attacker would gain a lot of loot, which could undermine the entire economy. But on the other hand, freezing them is meddling with people's private wallets, which some people think is a big no-no. What Or pointed out is that a consequence of our work, the work I'm here to present today, is that we can actually find a middle way. We present a third option. This comes to show how relevant the discussion is and that this work actually could be very practical. So let's start with reviewing the problem we even want to solve. Bitcoin relies on ECDSA. And quantum computers might compromise ECDSA quite soon. What do we mean by quite soon? We know that the SECP curve used in Bitcoin can be broken with as few as 2300, about 2300 logical qubits. The required number of physical qubits decreases as time goes on, slowly but consistently. A survey from 2024 by Mosca and Piani shows that 10 out of 32 global experts believe that there is a chance of at least half that quantum cryptography will break widely used cryptography within a decade. A partial solution for that is to implement post-quantum signatures on Bitcoin. Why is it partial? One reason is that post-quantum signatures are much larger. Another is that you have to rally everyone in order to apply this solution. It does not help procrastinators. If you fell asleep for 50 years and woke up in a quantum future while your money is still pre-quantum safe, then you're in a problem. And the third issue is that it creates quantum loot. A lot of stuff on the blockchain can be stolen, can be moved around, and unfortunately it's in such large sums that it might undermine the entire Bitcoin economy. The solution we want to propose is called lifted FawkesCoin. It's a joint work with Or Satat from 2023 for my PhD. This is the main topic of this talk. It solves all of these problems and a few more problems that you didn't know you have, but it requires considerable trade-offs. It requires a hard fork. It slows down transaction confirmations to hours or even days. It requires users to be periodically online. Periodically could be even once a year, but if they aren't, then they might lose coins. During normal operation, you don't need any signatures, which is kind of sweet. But if you want to prove fraud, you need to post a decently large proof to the blockchain. And it requires burning all UTXOs created before 2014. Why 2014? Good question. If at this point you lost all interest in anything I have to say and everything here seems like an exterritorial to you, just take into account that this solution is also very modular. If you want all the benefits, you're gonna have to take all of the drawbacks, but you can also have only some of the benefits for only some of the drawbacks. And we're going to map out exactly what benefit you get for what concession. So our starting point is a cool algorithm from 2014 by Bonu and Miller. It's called FawkesCoin. It's really nice and it's quite interesting, but it is also flawed. And we are going to fix it. So one prerequisite is to be familiar with so-called cryptographic hashes. I like to think about cryptographic hashes, which we will just call a hash, as this magic randomness box. I can feed it any input of any length and it will give me a number in some known but very large range, typically between 0 and 2 to the 256. And we will just call this value the hash of x, AgeX. Given x, computing AgeX, I'm just gonna call it hashing x. And we just assume there is this particular hash function we appeal to. It's usually going to be SHA-256. Our cryptographic hash function has the following properties. Uniformity. If we haven't hashed x before, then its hash looks uniformly random. I'm not going to define this. You understand the gist. The second property is independence. We don't know anything about the result of hashing x, even if we know the result of hashing many other strings of our choice. Changing x by as much as a single bit changes age of x completely. The third property is called collision resistance, and it just says that it's hard to find two inputs that hash to the same value. And the fourth is called collision resistance. It just says that given any hash age, it is difficult to find an input x that will hash to age. Examples include SHA-256, Ketchuk, KHash, Blake, and many other hash functions. A fact we are going to rely on is that most widely used hash functions, and in particular all those that are relevant to our discussions, are post-quantum. Our starting point would be this question. Can we create a digital currency that uses no digital signatures at all? Bonu and Miller had this idea. We can just use a random string x as the secret key, and its hash as a public key. When spending the coin, we use x to prove that the UTXO is ours. So it sounds kinda nice and straightforward, and since age is invertible, it's difficult or unfeasible to look at public addresses and derive the secret keys from them. But there is a problem here, and it's not the flaw I'm talking about, it's a problem that Bonu and Miller solved. And this problem is front running. Let's say we want to spend a UTXO. In the optimistic scenario, this is what's going to happen. Alice has this coin whose address is age of x. It has a value of v, and when I say value, I mean the amount of coin. Bob will sample a random y as his secret key, compute its hash as his public key, and send it to Alice. Alice will create this transaction, which has the following information.
Hi, I'm Alice. I'm talking about the transaction whose address is age of x. This is my public key. Here is x, my secret key, to prove that this is my public key. I want to pay the public address age of y a total of v prime coins. The miners can take the difference as a fee.
So Alice posts her transaction to the network. Okay, there is a small typo here, sorry. What was supposed to be written is that the miner checks that the hash of this value x that Alice gave him really is the address, the public address that she's trying to spend. The miner will get the fee, Bob will wait for a few confirmations, and all is well, right? Well, in the more realistic case, this is what's gonna happen. A thief is going to see this transaction and say, okay, I'm going to spend this money to another address. I'm just going to take a little less more for myself, so I would pay a little more fee, because then the miner will prefer my transaction over Alice's. And that's how Alice's money was stolen for her being too optimistic. So what can we do? The key here is to use hashes as something called commitments. A commitment scheme is just a way to digitally put information in a box, send someone the box, but only send the key later. What I mean by that is that given some information X, I can compute a commitment to X, which has two properties. A hiding property, which says that it is infeasible to recover X from CX. The commitment doesn't tell us what's in the box. And binding means that it's infeasible to find Y, which is different from X, but has the same commitment. Which essentially means that once we put a value in the box, we can't change it retroactively. I admit the box analogy breaks a little bit here, but bear with me. For all the cryptographers in the audience who raised an eyebrow, I know this is actually a very specific special case of commitment scheme, but it's good enough for us for now. And the observation is that we can just use the hash of X as the commitment to X. If we use a cryptographic hash function, it gives us both hiding and binding. Why? Because it's hard to invert age, which means exactly that it's hard to learn X from age of X. And it's binding because being able to commit to one value and then open to another value exactly means that I found two values that hash to the same commitment, which contradicts the collision resistance of the hash. We are going to use this to introduce a paradigm. Of course, they didn't call it a paradigm, they just called it an idea, but once a few ideas follow the same pattern, then to the dismay of Thomas Kuhn, people start calling them paradigms. In FawkesCoin, the rules for spending a transaction are as follows. You first commit the transaction to the network. You don't post the transaction, just the commitment. You then wait for a predetermined number of blocks. You can wait more, but you can't wait less. And for concreteness, just call this 100. But remember, it could be small values of 100, it could be large values of 100. Only after enough blocks has passed, you are allowed to reveal, to post the transaction itself to the network. Transactions must be committed and sufficiently delayed to be valid. This is a structure that is going to repeat, and I call it the CDR paradigm. Each instance I will call a CDR cycle, and CDR is just short for commit, delay, reveal. How does the CDR approach suddenly make FawkesCoin secure? It works like this. The adversary doesn't know the actual transaction before the reveal. All they see is a hash. Only once the transaction is revealed, the adversary knows what the transaction is. Even if the adversary somehow manages to delay the inclusion of the transaction, they will just not have enough time to complete the CDR cycle for their adversarial transaction before the actual honest transaction is posted. So by the time the delay ends, their transaction will already be invalid. Now this relates to quantum front-running attacks, which are a problem we have in Bitcoin. In Bitcoin, the address of most UTXOs is a hashed EC public key. We know that a quantum computer can't invert hashes. As long as no new information becomes available, these UTXO are unstealable. At least assuming the hashed key wasn't leaked in other ways, like address reuse. We'll not get into this. This false sense of security breaks down when we actually try to spend this money. Spending the money requires exposing the EC public key to the world, creating a window of opportunity. It allows the quantum adversary to recover the secret key, and if they are fast enough, they can post a competing transaction. A partial solution to this, or something people tell themselves to sleep better at night, is that the quantum hardware needs to be quite fast. It needs to be able to break EC in minutes, and this is a long, long way. Now, we wouldn't be here if we didn't understand very well what's wrong with saying, that's gonna take forever. And it also creates other attack vectors. We could use censorship and eclipse attacks to try and prevent the transaction from being included in the blockchain, buying the quantum adversary more time to invert the public key. So while you can argue that it buys us a bit more time and alleviates the sense of urgency, this is still not a solution. So with this in mind, some people realized that the ideas of Bonu and Miller would actually be beneficial for quantum security to prevent front-running attacks. The first people to notice this were Bonu and Miller. In their very paper, they acknowledged the quantum resilience of their approach and suggested that their protocol could be used to mitigate a catastrophic algorithmic break of discrete log on the perf P256 or rapid advances in quantum computing. Later, Illy and Nottenbelt also noted the similarities between the FawkesCoin front-running attack and the quantum front-running attack, and they suggested you could implement this FawkesCoin-ish protocol. It's exactly the same setting. Instead of X, you have the EC public key, but other than that, it's exactly the same. All of this seems quite fantastic, right? Regardless of its long confirmation times, we remove all dependence on digital signatures. We revert to much simpler cryptography, which is much easier to quantum proof. For Bitcoin, it gives us the ability to spend at least some pre-quantum UTXO safely. So, is there a catch? Yes, there is a gaping hole. Can you see it? Well, the painful question here is who pays for the commitments? Miners only receive fees when the transaction is revealed. But what about the commitments? Due to hiding, they don't know anything about the committed transaction. It could be random garbage for all that they know. They can't even tell if it's really a hash. So why should they post the commitment at all? Posting based on trust and the hope that you will get compensated later is obviously a bad idea. It creates a terrible denial of service attack. And Bono and Miller propose two solutions for this. You can send the commitment with a proof that it actually commits to a fee-paying TXN. And instead of including the commitments themselves, you can just include a Merkle root to the commitment and use the Merkle proof when you want to reveal. These are nice solutions, except for that they don't work at all. A ZK proof only assures that if the transaction is revealed, it pays the fee, but it gives you no guarantees that a reveal will ever come. Merkle trees, well, it's a bit more subtle than that. It doesn't matter how many commitments there are in a block. There is only one hash, so you can't spam it, but you spam it from the other direction. The more garbage you get the miner to put in the Merkle tree, the longer the proofs get. So you can make the Merkle proofs arbitrarily long for free, and you make using the chain more expensive, which is another type of denial of service. And what about in Bitcoin? We have this Illy-Nottenbeck solution for post-quantum payments, but who pays for these commitments? They suggested two solutions which work but are far from ideal. One is that we can pay the fee from an already existing post-quantum UTXO, but who says we have those? Maybe we want to find modes of operation that works even before we implemented post-quantum signatures and UTXO. Maybe we just don't have access to anyone. It's a logistical trouble. Another solution is to reach an external agreement with a miner, which is problematic for other reasons. The major one is that it requires trust. Can we provide the quantum safety on-chain? Come up with a protocol that requires nothing external It makes no assumptions about the resources available to you other than posting transactions to the mempool. This is the main problem that we set out to solve. We'll just briefly introduce our results and then we'll dive a little bit. I promise it's not gonna take too long. So our contributions are as follows. First, we introduce a new protocol called lifted FawkesCoin. It's a zero-knowledge powered FawkesCoin that solves this problem. Second, we take the original FawkesCoin, the vanilla FawkesCoin, and we introduce extensions of FawkesCoin that greatly increase the set of spendable UTXOs, like surprisingly greatly, you're gonna see. Here is like this brief executive summary, and the left column is the just using post-quantum signatures as is. We have large transactions, moderate spending threshold. Spending threshold is essentially how much money you need in the UTXO so you could even spend it. And confirmation times as today, and it requires post-quantum UTXOs. The second column is vanilla FawkesCoin with the extensions. It gives you small transactions. It gives you a small spend threshold like today, but it has high confirmation times and it does require either post-quantum UTXO or a trusted setup. And then we have lifted FawkesCoin. It also gives you small transactions, but now you have a considerably higher spending threshold than with regular post-quantum cryptography, which might seem kind of weird. How come the transaction is very small and yet the spending threshold is high? And you're gonna see exactly why. And the confirmations are the same, but this is the only approach that doesn't require you to already have access to post-quantum UTXOs. Our serving suggestion is to implement all of the three payment methods together. We suggest using post-quantum signature for quick yet expensive transactions, lifted FawkesCoin for migrating pre-quantum transactions to post-quantum, and vanilla FawkesCoin for slow and cheap transactions in general. Now, when I say that's what we suggest, it doesn't mean that we necessarily think this is the best idea for Bitcoin. I think the discussion of what Bitcoin should do in reality is much more nuanced. It's just one way that we can enjoy all of the benefits together. Our extension to FawkesCoin gives us three modes. And actually, even the most restrictive mode already greatly improves upon the existing FawkesCoin solution, because the FawkesCoin solution could only help us with hashed UTXOs. But restrictive FawkesCoin is also good for derived UTXOs. A derived UTXO is any UTXO that was created by an HD wallet. Any UTXO that has a seed, even if the public key is leaked, you can still spend the derived UTXO. Stop and think about it for a second. This is like, I don't know, 60-70% of Bitcoin. This is a lot of UTXOs. It is slow. It takes days to spend a UTXO, but then again, we are never suggesting for it to be the only way to spend, only something to be used in certain situations. Unrestrictive increases the list even more to include what we call naked UTXOs. A naked UTXO is a UTXO for which the public key is leaked. Okay, no seed, leaked public key. What is there that could break the symmetry between the adversary and the user? Well, there is. But spending in this way takes months. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not saying that if you go to unrestricted FawkesCoin and spending all transactions would take months. Spending this would still take days, but the new transactions that you add into the mix will take months. So this is not a trade-off, but these are. One is that users would have to periodically come online, otherwise you could try to steal their money, though if they detect you, you will be punished. The other is that it requires to burn stealable coins, and using this solution requires a large deposit. And again, it's only for this new type. And the most promiscuous running model out there is permissive FawkesCoin, which allows you to spend lost UTXO. Now, what's a lost UTXO? It's a UTXO for which the owner doesn't know the secret key. So how could you spend them? Well, you're about to find out. And again, we have these trade-offs, but now it also requires a hard fork, obviously, because we are talking about spending a UTXO without providing the secret key, so this must have a hard fork. We will revisit the stable in a little while. And just a few crucial details not in this talk. One is that of quantum canaries, a whole discussion about clever ways to detect the emergence of quantum adversaries on chain and use this as a condition for activating any post-quantum solutions instead of drawing an arbitrary line in the sand. If you want to run FawkesCoin and lifted FawkesCoin together, you have to take some precautions. Also, some of the aspects here, if you implement them naively, they become DDoSable themselves. If you're not careful, you open a new DDoS attack surface. And I think the main conclusion here is don't implement any of this without reading the paper, because there are a lot of crucial details I'm not going to get into. So what is lifted FawkesCoin and how does it work? So I'll just remind you that one-way function is a function that is easy to compute but hard to invert. Or in other words, given y, it is hard to find x such that fx equal y. Now again, I know the cryptographers are looking at me with disdain. I know this is actually a stronger definition than the actual definition of one-way function, but we're going to use hashes. And hashes do have this property. Everything I say is going to follow through with this stronger definition anyway. We start with a digital signature scheme, any digital signature scheme, and we look at the map that takes the secret key to the public key. Now there is a small caveat here. Nothing about the definition of a digital signature actually assures you that it's easy to compute the public key from the secret key. But in practice, it always happens. I can't think of any signature scheme from practice or from theory that I've heard of that doesn't give you a very straightforward way to convert a secret key to a public key. So I freely assume that such a function exists for any digital signature scheme we are even going to care about. And I'm going to call this map PKDS. The first result from our paper could be informally stated as if PKDS happens to be a post-quantum one-way function, we can lift it to a scheme ds tilde, which is also post-quantum, but it uses the same keys. Of course, this is just a syntactic definition. It doesn't define what makes a lifting secure. We are actually going to see two notions of security for signature liftings. But before we do, let us just recall what it means for a standard digital signature to be secure. So we have a signature scheme. It can generate key pairs, it can sign, and it can verify. And we have a game. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with this type of definition, it's actually very common. Assume you have two players. C, the challenger, which is like the bank or like the referee. They follow all the rules to the letter. And then on the other side, you have the adversary A, which can do whatever they want, and they have a winning condition for the challenge. In this case, the challenger generates a key pair and sends the public key to the adversary. The adversary can send messages to the challenger, and the challenger will respond with a signature for each message. It captures the fact that we want to be secure against an adversary that has seen a lot of signed documents. She can sign as many messages as she wants, and then she outputs an M prime and a sigma prime. The winning condition is that sigma prime is a valid signature for M prime with respect to the public key, and that Alice never asked the challenger to sign on M prime, because that would make the game very, very easy. We say that the digital signature is post-quantum secure if no quantum polynomial time adversary can feasibly win. And again, you see there is a caveat. It's actually a specific form of security, both in the variety of security notions for digital signatures and in the variety of ways we can model a quantum attacker. I don't want to get into this. Now that we have this definition, we can modify it a bit to get what we call a post-quantum lifting. We took the original digital signature scheme, but we replaced the sign and verify procedures of the original scheme with their wavy counterparts. Saying that DS wave is a post-quantum lifting is just saying that we get a post-quantum signature scheme. It's very, very simple. It's exactly the same definition, only we use the new procedures. It turns the original scheme to a post-quantum scheme with the same keys. So how do we post-quantum lift a signature scheme? The key instrument to do that is a very particular signature scheme called Picnic by Chase et al. From 2017. In Picnic, we can start with any function we want, and we can instantiate Picnic with this scheme. And what we get is a signature scheme where the secret key is a uniformly random element in the domain. The public key is the image of the secret key. And if F happens to be post-quantum one way, instantiating Picnic with F result in a post-quantum secure signature scheme. A small asterisk that the security is proven in the quantum random oracle model. And we can use this to create a lifting construction. We start again with a digital signature scheme. And we again take this map PKDS. And now we just instantiate Picnic with PKDS. It creates a new signature scheme. But the key is that this new signature scheme works with the old key generation. This seems like a nice construction, but does it solve all our problems? The first catch, of course there's a catch, is that the assumption that PKDS is post-quantum one way is not generally true. It's usually not. We know that a quantum computer can easily invert the PK function for elliptic curve signatures, for example. So in what scenarios can we even use this lifting? One scenario, unsurprisingly, is hash public keys. We know that it's very typical to use the hash of an EC public key as an address, so we can capture it by slightly modifying the signature scheme itself so that the hash becomes the key. It's very simple. In the key generation, we create the secret and public key as before, but now instead of giving the public key, we give the hash of the public key. When we sign exactly as before, only we also provide the original public key before it was hashed. And when we verify as before, but we also verify that the public key that we got is really hashed into the hash of the public key that we had before. So this captures how P2PKH and P2SH works. And this one also satisfies that it is a post-quantum one-way function. Why? Because we have a composition of age, which is assumed to be post-quantum, on PKEC, which is, we can assume it is bijective and very unrelated to age. It's almost a proof, what I said right now. In the QROM, it's really easy to prove this. The second catch, of course, is the size of the signature. And the size of Picnic F grows with the size of the circuit we have to compute F. And this can be huge. And in hashed ECDSA, this will be huge. The circuit for computing F is not very friendly for these kinds of constructions. The partial solution we can give is to zoom just on the post-quantum step. Only apply Picnic to age. And this gives us the theorem that this modification also provides a post-quantum lifting, which is a bit more challenging to prove, but not really. If we assume that H is instantiated as a SHA-256 hash, then it admits a rather compact circuit. It's not the tiniest circuit, but SHA is ASIC friendly. It was designed to admit a rather small circuit. So the signature will still be very large, as in hundreds of kilobytes, but not huge, as in dozens of megabytes. Now that we have these lifted signatures, how can we do a lifted FawkesCoin? We combine FawkesCoin and lifted signatures, and we obtain a solution with the following properties. One is that no trusted payment is required, and the second is that there are no chip spamming attacks, or in other words, we solve both of the problems we pointed out to earlier. And also, lifted signatures are never posted to the blockchain unless someone is trying to cheat, and then they are posted as fraud proof. So a first attempt to come up with a protocol will probably look something like this. We want to spend a UTXO U, which has address, which is the hash of the public key. The spender posts this information to the mempool, the fee that they are about to pay, the picnic signature on the fee and on the commitment to the transaction, the hash of the transaction, and then the miner would post all these three pieces of data to the blockchain. So we are going to see a transaction that spends U and pays a fee of alpha. The spender waits 100 blocks and then they post, and the miner checks that there is indeed a commitment which is old enough and that the transaction pays the fees that it was supposed to pay. And if everything is fine, the miner posts the transaction to the blockchain. Do you see any problem with this attempt? The problem is the user can still spam by committing the same UTXO many times. So a solution would be to lock the UTXO. Once someone committed to a UTXO, nobody else can commit to the UTXO. We can modify our protocol like this. The miner first verifies that U isn't locked, and then he posts all of this to the blockchain, and U becomes locked. Now, I want to stress here that only the owner of the transaction can do this, because the miner sees the signature and can verify everything they need to verify. However, on the blockchain, we don't post the signature. So again, the spender waits 100 blocks, and we follow the same procedure. But then we had this new step that the spender must reveal fast enough, and if they do not, then the miner can post the proof to the blockchain to claim the entire UTXO. So this prevents the user from spamming the miner for free. But obviously there is still a catch, otherwise I would not call it an attempt, right? So what is it? The catch now is that a miner can censor or at least delay a transaction U by just posting U next to a fake commitment. How do we solve this? We force the miner to place a deposit. If the miner fails to post a fraud proof, then the entire deposit is paid to the user. So this gives us the final protocol. It's exactly the same, but now we have 3 periods. First, the miner posts this triplet to the blockchain and U is locked. Then the spender waits 100 blocks. Then the spender has 100 blocks to reveal the transaction. If they manage to do this, fine. Otherwise, the miner must post a fraud proof. And if the miner fails to do this, then the user is compensated, because the miner just tried to censor S, because if the miner had a fraud proof, they would have posted it. And at the end of all this tararam, if the UTXO is not spent, then it is unlocked. There are 2 weaknesses to this. Firstly, that the UTXO must be valuable enough to cover the cost of posting a lifted signature. A miner wouldn't agree to include a commitment for UTXO that doesn't contain enough money to compensate them for posting a fraud in the case someone tries to cheat them. But this increases the spending threshold considerably. The second weakness is that it's only good for hashed addresses. It can't help you if your key is leaked, because knowing the public key is enough to spend in the lifted FawkesCoin. So what can we do? Can we isolate the source of this weakness? Well, let's revisit the security of signature lifting. Recall that it looks like this, and the weakness is that we can't let the adversary access the original sign function. And this is not very good, right? Because in Bitcoin, we do want to be able to handle this situation, because this is exactly the situation of the ECDSA public key leaking, right? So we introduce a new notion of a strong post-quantum lifting, which is exactly like a post-quantum lifting, except now the adversary has access to both signing procedures, the wavy one and the original one. The lifting we've seen is not strongly secure because the signature contains the public key. They only need to see one pre-quantum signature and everything is broken. Can we find better ways to apply lifting? Well, if you followed, you already know the answer. If not, you might be a bit surprised. The answer is HD wallets. Now I see that this is taking a lot of time, so I'm gonna just gloss over. But the point is that HD wallet allows us to use one secret to derive many addresses, and it goes through these many derivation paths, and almost each step along the way is a hash, so it is post-quantum. We only apply picnic here. This is at all not as simple as it sounds, but we found a way to lift from the seed such that we get a strong lifting. It's even stronger definition because we prove that it's secure even with respect to an adversary that has access to signatures from all keys derivable from the seed, and we are still fine. So the main idea is to only apply picnic to KDF, but the construction and the proof are actually very tricky. But the conclusion is thus: a combination of FawkesCoin and lifted signatures can provide us with no trusted payment requirement, no cheap spending attacks, and needing to post the actual large signatures to the blockchains only if there is a fraud attempt. Next up is the many ways to extend FawkesCoin, and when I say many, I mean 3. So we have these classifications of UTXOs, and it's a knowledge-based definition. And I'm just gonna skip forward a bit because this is running much longer than I intended. This gives us a better understanding of what all this name hash, derived, naked, lost, etc. actually mean. You can find this table in the paper and get an exact definition of what these things are. This gives us 3 modes of operation. We have restrictive FawkesCoin, which is very similar to the Ely-Norton-Belt construction, but it has an added functionality that it can also help derived UTXO, and I remind again that the derived UTXOs are really the big fish here. It's all UTXOs created by an HD wallet, at least if the owner still has the seed. It's a lot of UTXOs. The problem is that it exposes the seed, so it's in a sense a one-time solution, but there are workarounds. Unrestricted FawkesCoin extends FawkesCoin further by allowing us to spend naked UTXO. That is, UTXO whose public key is known to the world. How do you do that? So the key observation here, what breaks the symmetry, is that an adversary can't know whether a naked UTXO is derived or not. The rough idea is to allow anyone to spend naked UTXO using FawkesCoin, but additionally, just for naked UTXO, again, this doesn't affect the previous sets, require a large deposit. And we talk in the paper about how to monetize this deposit and then stall the transaction for a long period, say for a year. Now, if this transaction is actually naked in the sense that nobody has the seed, then it's gone. But if you have the seed, you can claim the deposit. All you need to do is post a lifted signature that proves that you own the seed. You have an entire year to do that. This is what is supposed to deter adversaries from using this mechanism. They don't know if they're going to lose the deposit, and there is even a cool effect here that users are encouraged to lie about using their keys to entice adversaries to try and steal their money so they could steal their deposit. And there are some crucial details. One is that naked transactions that are known not to be derived must be burned. We recommend burning all naked UTXO before 2014. And the deposit must be large enough to cover the cost of posting a lifted signature, which is not cheap. And owners of naked UTXO must periodically check that nobody is trying to steal their money. Quite a lot of restrictions for quite a lot of gain. And as I said before, owners of naked UTXOs are incentivized to lie, which is kinda cool. Now, the most promiscuous one out there, as I said, is permissive FawkesCoin. You can spend lost UTXO. You can recover UTXO whose keys were lost. And the idea is exactly the same. Allow anyone to spend any non-burned UTXO without any signature, but again, require a deposit. And if someone happens to have a seed for this address, they can claim the deposit. The drawback is that you need to spend UTXO without a valid signature, which requires a hard fork. Let's conclude this thing. The key takeaways are that migration after the fact is possible, though it requires preparing in advance. At the very least, you need to burn the loot. It is possible to operate without on-chain public signatures whatsoever. I'm not talking about Bitcoin right now, just about the possibility of a protocol that does that. You get full post-quantum security with very small transactions, but it has a cost of very slow confirmations and a rather complicated UX. This mechanism can be integrated into Bitcoin, but requires at the very least a soft fork. So that's all I have for you. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you're enjoying the conference and I hope I could join you next time. Have a great day.